Welcome to the Disclosure Dialogues. I'm your host, Leslie Klein, and tonight we are going to update you on the state of UFO disclosure. This is not a lecture, it's a dialogue. So, since we're live and this is a dialogue, I want to hear from you, the viewers. Drop your questions and comments in the chat. This is Disclosure Dialogues, and your voice is an important part of the conversation. So, tonight we're diving into presidential statements, declassification demands, grassroots action, and what real transparency could actually look like. And I'm going to bring on the screen my panelist. And first we have Dr. Melanie Barton. Dr. Melanie is a holistic psychotherapist from Tallahassee, Florida, and she's also the Florida Citizens for Disclosure state leader. So welcome, Melanie, to the show. Next, we've got Anthony Miller. Anthony is the Virginia and DC Citizens for Disclosure state leader. He's also the host of Fire in the Cosmos, which is a podcast on YouTube. Next, we've got Derek Broussard. Derek is in Alabama, but he comes from Arizona and I think California. He is the Alabama Citizens for Disclosure state leader. And last but not least, we've got Ryan Weiner. Ryan is the Illinois Citizens for Disclosure state leader. So welcome everyone to the show. I'm so grateful that you're here. We're going to have a great time tonight. There's so much happening on the UAP UFO area. So I like to ask my guest and the audience, I'm going to actually put a ticker here on the screen, and ask each of you to talk about whether you are an experiencer, a believer, curious about the subject, a skeptic, or you may prefer not to say. So as people are watching, please put your comments on the screen and let us know which of these you are. So Melanie, do you want to go ahead and start us?
I'm both a believer and an experiencer.
Wonderful. Anthony?
I was a skeptic, but I am now an experiencer and a believer and a knower.
Ryan?
All of the above. Definitely an experiencer and believer in everything else. I mean, after you're an experiencer, kind of hard not to believe so.
For sure. And Derek?
And I would say that I'm a believer and experiencer. I know enough to know that, it is what it is. So I'm all the way.
There you go. And I'll share for myself too. I am not an experiencer yet, definitely a believer. So again, as people are watching us, please put it on the screen, comment which of these that you guys are. So let's talk about why this issue just escalated in the last couple of weeks. This is where it all started when former President Obama on the Brian Tyler Cohen podcast, he was asked this question, and let me go to the clip.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in what is it?
Area 51.
Area 51. There's no underground facility, unless there's this enormous conspiracy, and they hid it from the President of the United States.
What was the first question you wanted answered when you became president?
Where are the aliens?
Where are the aliens?
So that's what started this. And when a former president, talks about this, even if it's casually, it makes this topic less taboo. And it signals that this isn't just a fringe conversation anymore. So, and it's not just Obama. Hillary Clinton, in her deposition for the Epstein files, was also asked directly by Representative Eric Burleson about UAP transparency. So let me pull up this clip here. Started. Here we go.
So I'm going to begin with some lighthearted, different questions. and you're welcome to ignore them or if you want to. But while I have you here, I just have to ask. So, when your husband was president, it was Lawrence Rockefeller had an effort to try to disclose UFOs, UAPs. When you were running for president, John Podesta publicly stated that you would disclose these files if given the chance, if you had been president. Are you pleased to see that these files may be disclosed finally?
I am pleased. As I say, I think they have to be carefully scrutinized so that no national security information is disclosed. But this is an issue of real importance to so many people, and I think whatever can be disclosed should be disclosed.
Was there a program that specifically that was referencing that you were aware of?
I was not. As you mentioned, John Podesta, who was one of my advisors, was deeply interested in the issue, and if I had been elected, I certainly would have listened to his advice.
Well, thank you for your indulgence on that.
This is sort of like off subject, but didn't you all require in the latest defense authorization that the UFO information has to be? What?
They ripped it out. They killed it.
Oh, I thought that had gone through.
That was my amendment, and it got ripped out.
Oh, okay, well, I didn't know that, so thank you for enlightening me, okay.
Yeah, they've been killing it.
I didn't know that.
Next up's Representative Perry from Pennsylvania.
So that was pretty interesting that, even people that we think are in the know sometimes aren't. Now I want to share with you what happened on Air Force One with President Trump when he was asked to respond to former President Obama's comments.
Something that got a lot of attention this week. Barack Obama said that aliens are real. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors to Earth?
Well, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that.
So aliens are real?
Well, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. He made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information. No, I don't have an opinion on it. I never talk about it. A lot of people do. A lot of people believe it. Do you believe it, Peter?
The president can declassify anything that he wants to,
Well,
so if
maybe
you
I'll
want to
get
make
him out
an
of trouble.
announcement.
I may get him out of trouble by declassifying.
We know illegal aliens are real.
Yeah, illegal. Only illegals. What else?
So that was what happened on Air Force One. And then later on that night is when we got this Truth Social from President Trump that said, based on the tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, UAP and UFOs, and any other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting, important matters. So, pretty interesting that we had all these responses. And the fact that, he was saying that Obama was giving out classified information, but I didn't hear classified information in what he was saying. I think, so I wanted to get your response to this. There have been a lot of responses online. Russ Coulthart said that declassification should be formally demanded, not just, releasing files, but declassifying. Neil deGrasse Tyson says that if we're serious, he says, produce the bodies. So what's your reaction to Trump's Truth Social and everything that's transpired? Is this momentum or messaging? Who would like to share first?
Yeah, well, I will. I think that it's a little bit of both, right? They are nice words. I think that it's momentum building behind this subject. We've been interested in this for years now. And so the fact that it's being discussed on, legacy media and the way that it is so frequently, that definitely shows momentum. And messaging is definitely great. We all got excited, right, when we saw this material. But ultimately, it comes down to legislation, because right now it's just all lip service. And that's great, but we need to have more.
Okay. Anthony, would you like to share?
Sure, I totally agree with Derek. There's no underground bases, right? Unless there's some conspiracy. No, yeah, I totally agree with Derek. I think it's a little bit of both messaging and actual intention behind it, and also some distraction considering what's going on politically and socially in the U.S. Around the Epstein files, around now increasingly military activities abroad, and probably a lower approval rating for the president. So I think this is some sort of distraction, but I don't think that those of us who are cynical about things like that, especially politics, I don't think we should, because of that, I don't think we should look away and kind of just not get involved and kind of step back from this topic or this issue or this time. I think that this is an opportunity that we can leverage because it is being discussed in open ways increasingly by credible figures, in credible places, and on credible media outlets. So definitely there's an opportunity there that we can leverage as citizens around this issue.
Ryan, would you like to share? Oh, go ahead, Dr. Melanie.
So mine might be an unpopular opinion, but I think there are forces behind the scenes, behind Congress, military, and other operatives that control what comes out. And so the work that we're doing with Citizens for Disclosure, I think, is uniting the American public to say there's going to be enough of us to force the hand to say, you got to tell us something. So I don't think the president's in charge of this or the former president's in charge of this. I don't think Congress is in charge of it. I think we need to force them to do their job. So that's my opinion.
Love it. I agree with you too. Ryan.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Barton. I think there are definitely things going on behind the scenes here as well. As to how to quantify that up against everything, that we're seeing going on with Congress and the different hearings and everything. Not really sure how to balance two against each other. I will drop this in though. According to Dr. Stephen Greer, and I have no reason to believe this is not true, I know for a fact that he did a briefing for President Obama. President Obama may not have taken it seriously, but I know that according to him, there was a briefing. So I think that President Obama was dropping a little bit of a hint, kind of literally, unless there's a big conspiracy type of thing. I think that's kind of what he was going for there.
And speaking of that, let me share this with you. Here is the actual briefing that he did for President Obama. This was back in, let's see if he has the date here, 2009. And yep, 2009, January. And he talks about, since the mid-50s, classified projects connected to ET matters have operated outside constitutionally required oversight and control by the president and Congress. And, this is something, this document is many pages long, and you can actually go to Dr. Stephen Greer's website, drstephengreer.com, and purchase a paperback or hard copy of the document of the briefing that he gave the president. Certain sensitive materials are redacted in it, but that's available. And also, he also briefed Donald Trump. Here's a memorandum to Trump from February 9th of 2025 about, the Disclosure Project, pretty much the same information. Since the 50s, the subject has been handled by corrupt, deep state, transnational organization whose power has grown to a level that is an imminent threat to national security and international peace and security. This is only a one-pager, but talks about several things here about whistleblower protection. He talks about the SAPs, the special access projects. He talks about, that there needs to be an executive order requiring all of the UFO, UAP operations to be disclosed. So this has been out there. Greer has been on it. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, Ryan. But CFD has also been on it because we have our own new Paradigm Institute's Danny Sheehan said that a social media directive is not enough. And he's calling for a binding executive order that covers 6 military branches, 18 intelligence agencies, 32 Department of Defense agencies, and private aerospace contractors who have contracts with the government. So, why
Big
do
one.
you guys think that having this binding executive order is so important? Who wants to go first?
Well, I mean, I'll go for that, but it's important that we have mechanisms that are set up in place so that when Congress makes, a demand, that it's followed. Because right now, different aspects of the UAPDA have been passed, but there's not any teeth or an enforcement mechanism to make that. So by having an executive order, that is going to bypass the bureaucracy. People just need to fall in line and do what that executive order demands. And so I think once the people know exactly what is inside that executive order, as far as what the teeth are, yeah, we'll begin to make a lot more progress, I think, faster once we become educated on what it is we are exactly asking for.
Who else
Yeah, I
would like to
agree.
respond? Ryan?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that's definitely like Derek said. There's so many different things that initiatives get put out there, but yeah, without any actual kind of rule like stating you need to do this or an executive order or something like that, we're not going to get anybody doing anything. They're going to drag their feet. There was something that was supposed to go on a while back where it was like, oh, I want all this information by this date, and then suddenly the date got taken away, and now we've never gotten any of the information. So yeah, we definitely need something to be, stamped.
Yeah, I think that was a UAP.
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 That was the records collection, I believe. All that information that was supposed to be, from the 6 different military branches, the 18 intelligence agencies, and also the 20-something odd defense departments. They were all supposed to gather all of that data, and it was supposed to be given to the National Archives so we could set up a review process, because it is a controlled disclosure. But this was the mechanism that was supposed to be in place. And I'm sorry, I misspoke. That's just it. There isn't a mechanism in place that can say, hey, you've had X amount of time. This is the deadline. You've missed it. These are the repercussions. And so it just boils down to having a brave Congress to step forward and enforce those mechanisms in order to do what they've actually already mandated.
Mm-hmm.
And my thought is, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, I was going to say, and there were a few other specifics in the letter that Danny Sheehan published on the New Paradigm Institute website that I encourage folks to check out, and you can send a version of that letter to Trump and the White House and pretty easily. It takes like 30 seconds, and within that, it includes things like a specific timeline that must be created around this, so it's not just kind of up in the air and ambiguous. It calls on the enforcement mechanism that Derek is talking about, which would come through Congress. Trump's statement on Truth Social does not mention Congress at all. So Congress would be the body that can enforce this and have the oversight capacity that it's there for. That's what our representatives are there to do. And then on top of that, it defines very specific language that has historically been used probably as loopholes to get around releasing certain things. So it doesn't just say aliens or UAP. It mentions non-human intelligence. It mentions extraterrestrial intelligence, flying discs, including different spellings of the word disc, flying saucers, things like that. So really important things that are in there to try to get around certain loopholes. And then on top of that, it helps, it calls for enhanced whistleblower protections, which is critical to get some of the details to come out, because without that information, you're relying on the same agencies and the same structures to release certain things. So if things are hidden in certain ways, this really does a great job at trying to circumvent that.
Yeah, I've got that on the screen there. I was going to mention it a little bit later, but since you mentioned it, I wanted to put it on there. So, Melanie, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think the forces behind all of this are going to decide how much will be disclosed. And unless you're knowledgeable, you won't know what they're not telling us. So who's going to fact check? Who's going to be allowed to go in and look at everything? I don't think they'll allow that. That's just my opinion.
Right. So last week, the president had the national stage with his State of the Union address, and he did not mention the UAP files at all. And I wanted to, why do you think it wasn't addressed? I mean, he just came out with, the Truth Social, and then he had the opportunity, and it was like the longest speech ever. And he mentioned nothing about the UAP files. Why do you think? Because he's distraction or what?
I don't know if it's so much distraction as much as it is. This is just the nature of disclosure, right? I think that a lot of people want to separate, what's happening with the Epstein saga from what's happening with the UAP issue. But that's part of disclosure, like as a whole, because there are many moving parts to this. And after looking at this for 25 something, odd years, like this is just part of the process. And so, you have Steven Spielberg's film that's going to be coming out this summer, Disclosure Date. So the public just needs to be primed for all of this, because again, as Danny even mentions, like we have to think about the different mechanisms within our society and how those things function, right? So if you're losing trust in those institutions, whether it's the FBI, the CIA, it's NASA, it's the NSA, it's your religious institutions, in some way, shape, or form, at least in my opinion, they're either directly responsible for the cover up, or they've been complicit in it. And so when you have all of that that's riding on this, it's what do you do with disclosure afterwards, and what do we do with the institutions afterwards? And that's a pretty large question. So I can see why it's a slow process, because we as a society, as a humanity, are going to have to acclimate to some truths that are very hard to swallow. They're things that are so far removed from reality that, of course, it sounds like conspiracy theory or science fiction, but that's just part of the process. So it's going to be slow, and it's irritating, right? Because we want it now. But once we get it, though, it's what are we going to do with that information? How are we going to change the way that we behave and interact with each other? And how do we get through this new paradigm that we're all going to be facing together?
Yeah, I totally second what Derek said. I have a 15-year career as an open source intelligence analyst. And for those who don't know what that means, it's essentially looking at the way that publicly available media and social media can strategically influence events on the ground and the way people think. And my career was doing that on geopolitics and counterterrorism issues. But I quickly saw how that kind of trickles down into everything that's around us constantly in the information age, and how that shapes our understanding of reality. And in politics, as with anything else, there's a constant social influence campaign taking place, regardless of who's behind it and who's doing it. And it's also in the commercial world all around us in marketing. So I think they are trying to see how things play in the media and social media and the public. I think there are certain structures and systems that are still too old school, that it's going to take some time to talk about these topics there, like the State of the Union, for example. It's going to take a further destigmatization more broadly for things to open up there, where these will be considered legitimate issues. I think that's what's happening as well.
It's so interesting that the new media is social media, and all the podcasters right here. We've got Anthony, you're a podcaster. You've got the show Fire in the Cosmos. Ryan Weiner, you have the Ryan Weiner podcast as well. I've got my Good Vibes TV as well. So, I think this is the new way that we'll be communicating and getting that information. Plus, there's so many, Jeremy Corbell, Russ Colhart on News Nation, all of these aspects where the grassroots, we can get the information from those levels. Ryan, did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I agree with you guys on needing to get the public primed, so to speak, because I think there's some of us out there that are, we've been looking into this kind of stuff for a long time. So for us, it's almost kind of old, song and dance. It's like we're waiting for things to happen, basically. And then you've got people out there that aren't going to be surprised. They're going to be able to deal with it with maybe non-human intelligence type of things. But like Derek and I have even talked about before, there's all sorts of different stuff that file-wise, is going to be coming out, that people are going to learn that, different organizations have been involved in this kind of thing. So I think that that's going to be something to deal with. And another reason to get everybody as primed kind of as possible as we can, as people who are into this kind of thing too. A lot of these different people, Dr. Greer's talked about this, if there isn't something done expediently, people with access to this information about the different, the legacy programs and all this different stuff, they're going to drop that on the internet. And then the world's just going to get hit with that information out of nowhere. So I'm hoping that this release of information, that this gets going the way that Danny wants it to, with an executive order, and that it's pushed out in an expedient manner to be able to prevent that kind of shock factor thing from happening.
That's great. Yeah, but that ontological shock is a real thing. And I know, Dr. Melody, you're working on a book about that, especially from the perspective of religious beliefs. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We did a survey, Kathleen Marden and I, who's the niece of Benny and Barney Hill. We did a survey, 1,005 participants, asking 50 questions. And right now it's being analyzed statistically, and articles are being written about, does it matter about your education level, about your religious background? Does that influence how you feel about UAPs and aliens and all that? And then, how is your experience affecting what you're looking forward to, and how this affects you emotionally? So all that will be coming out over time. We've got 2 articles right now ready to be submitted for publication. And once that's done, I'll get it out and talk about it. So.
Yeah, and I understand that former President Obama has a film company, and they're producing a film about the Betty and Barney Hill abduction situation, which is pretty interesting, especially why he said about the aliens, because he's creating a movie about it. All right.
Leslie,
well,
if I can add one more comment about this before we move on to the next topic.
Sure.
I think there's a common misconception out there, maybe not so much in our community, but in general, that there are like 2 sides to this topic, like a pro-disclosure side and anti-disclosure side. But from my experience in this field in the last several years, and living in the DC area, and being in some of these networks and circles around this topic, it's very clear to me there are so many camps around this, whether they're in the pro-disclosure side or anti-disclosure side, and everyone has their own opinion of how managed things should be, and to what ends, and why. So I would like the public to keep that in mind, that there are multiple things happening at once and for different reasons. So I think that is increasingly why it's important that we as the public have a better understanding of these issues, so we can actually use our power in a democracy to compel certain things to happen in a certain way, rather than relying on a few of these compartmentalized groups to direct this process.
Absolutely. Power to the people, right? We have to take back our power. And I think the whole transparency movement, whether you're talking about Epstein files or disclosure, for, UAP disclosure, we want the truth to come out, and we have to demand it as a people. I want to talk, any other comments on that before I move on to legislative disclosure? No? Okay. Let's talk about the State of UAP and UFO legislative disclosure. Derek has been great using the Gamma app, or Gamma AI, and I asked him to do a presentation on what's happened with that. So let me go ahead and pull that up on the screen here. And here we go, where things stand. Okay. Go ahead, Derek. Share, please.
Yeah, so taking at the UAP where disclosure, where it stands, and this is really more for those that are interested in getting involved with Citizens for Disclosure, and kind of what we talk about, and some of the information that we provide so that you can learn about this subject, because there's so much going on. It's, where do I start? And we can go down all these different rabbit holes. But really, it starts with learning these basics. And so when you take a look here at where things stand, at least at this point, if you scroll down just a little bit more, we'll go to the next slide really quick. Yeah, as we were talking earlier, the UAPDA has been introduced 3 times, right? So you see in 2023, it was passed in the Senate, but gutted in the House Senate conference. In 2024, it was reintroduced, but again, it failed to gain support, but there were those small wins, not enough to have any teeth in the legislation, as we talked about earlier, but definitely, a couple of wins there. In 2025, it was reintroduced again. And actually last summer, that's when we went into identifying those 119 legislators that sat on the 4 key committees and really pushed the UAPDA and educating the staffers on what this subject was about and the legislation. And so, as you heard earlier, Eric Burleson stating that, within the House Rules Committee, some of the staffers had taken out that language, right, stating that it was non-germane when it pretty much spoke to the germaneness of the National Defense Authorization Act. But these are some of the things that we want you to be prepared for, because there's some wins and there's some losses. And sometimes what I've seen sometimes is that, we're so excited for this legislation to pass. We work so hard and then something falls through and people begin to lose hope. But it's just not understanding how this game works and how the system is played. And so just understanding that the UAPDA has been an ongoing struggle, and hopefully soon we'll get to reintroduce another standalone legislation with that. But where they're falling short at, let me see here, it's in here. There we go. So with the UAPDA and some of the shortfalls, we were really hoping that with this passing, as it sees right here, is creating that review board that was supposed to be modeled after the JFK Records Review Board. As we covered earlier, the records collection, the lawful disclosure, the UAP records collection, the transfers and mandates, and congressional briefings. These are all things that we wanted to put into this packaging that would mandate all of what we're going to be talking about in the future, right? We wanted all of those agencies to transfer everything over to the National Archive. That just didn't happen, but you got to have those mandates in place, and that's what the UAPDA is meant to do. And so if you scroll down, because we're almost done, I know we have a lot that we got to get through. Just a little bit more, keep on going. We can jump through.
Last page?
The last page. There you go. So there we stand and in the full picture of things. Ultimately, in summary of everything, is it really comes down to all of us getting together and making this happen. Because right now there is congressional reopening. We are going to have a standalone UAP bill that's going to be coming forward. And the legislative resistance is always going to be an issue. As Melanie said, there's different power structures that are out there that just don't want this to happen. So until we visit newparadigminstitute.org and we sign these legislations and we start doing these call to actions, that's when we're really going to start making more than just the partial progress that we've made so far. Because there's still these unresolved questions. We always have more questions than answers, and that definitely needs to end. But it's understanding what special access programs are and understanding exactly how compartmentalization is working. That's really going to send us into the next level. Private contractors. So if it is a Lockheed Martin, or if it is a Boeing, or if it is Bigelow Aerospace, if it's all of these companies that are working together in unison with the government, we're going to have ways to compel them to give that information to the general public so that we can make a difference and move this thing forward. Because we honestly, when it comes to national security, we can't afford to not have this information come out. And that's all I really have to say on that little presentation there.
Thank you for doing that. I love your gamma presentations. They really help so much in just wrapping our heads around this, because it's really a complicated scenario. Just like Anthony said, there's so many layers to it. So while Washington hesitates, grassroots movement momentum keeps growing. And I want to just mention some of the things that what the state of Citizens for Disclosure has been. We did have this UAP DA, which is the Defense Authorization Act. summer campaign when this legislation, it didn't pass, or this is what Eric Burleson was talking about, how it got gutted and how it was staffers. He was so pissed off because we were watching this live last September, the hearings, when he found out that they was staffers that made these decisions and not the representatives. We also had the Age of Disclosure watch parties last November and December to kind of educate the public about what's been going on with that. And of course, we have this new standalone bill that Representative Burleson and Danny Sheehan are working on. Danny Sheehan is a constitutional lawyer, and he's just so smart and has been involved with, from the Pentagon Papers to Iran-Contra, so many big social justice issues. I'm just in awe of him and his life partner, Sarah Nelson. Also, he was the one who came up with this executive order push. And then the next thing that we are going to be working on is a transparency pledge campaign and I'm going to actually put that on the screen here. So we can see it. The transparency pledge campaign. This is, let me make sure this is big enough for us, where we're going to ask all of the Congress people and even candidates running for office to, and we're going to invite them to review the Citizens for Disclosure Transparency Pledge supporting responsible transparency, lawful oversight, and institutional accountability regarding unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP. The pledge affirms governance principles, including lawful disclosure, oversight, whistleblower protections, and responsible classification while protecting national security. So that is our main effort that we will be working on. And, Citizens for Disclosure has only been around now for about a year. And we've got 34 states activated. We've got 46 leaders. And what we understand, there's around 4,000 volunteers across the country. And actually, there's even a Canadian group, too, that is all about disclosure. So here is the website. So people can actually join the New Paradigm Institute. You can sign up for the newsletter. You can become a volunteer. And to get to the what is it called? The call to action to urge President Trump to take an executive order regarding what he said, and just making an executive order, not just a social media post. Here is a tiny URL that you can go to. So what do you guys think of I was really impressed by how quickly we responded as the Citizens for Disclosure as a group to what President Trump put out there. What did you guys think?
Well, I was impressed. I mean, of course, as soon as the word came out, I jumped on that, immediately. And I sent messages out to, everyone that I knew. I went through my cell phone and sent text messages to all the friends, family, coworkers, because everybody just needs to get involved, right? I mean, we can talk about it, but you need to be about it. And so if you really want to make change, or you really want to see something with this subject, you just have to get involved. And I think a lot of times people are kind of, standoffish because they may fall into that, well, my vote doesn't really matter, or look at what's going on, how can I make a difference? But I'm telling you, we're making a difference, because when you're calling these different legislative staffers and these senior policy advisors, and you're developing relationships with them, sending emails back and forth, you're building that confidence and relationships, so that way we can actually start to effectuate some policy changes. So it's really important that all the constituents in districts reach out, speak to your representative, let them know that this is a subject that you are deeply passionate about, and especially it being, the midterms are up. So this really should be on the front burner, and this should be one of those issues that determines whether you get a vote or not.
Right. And that's where that pledge will help.
Mm-hmm. I like the idea that for those of us that are volunteers, we have a script. They'll actually tell us what to say or what to write or what to email or what to say when we call. And it makes it very simple. And you think, oh, I can't do it. But yes, you can. And it's very effective.
Ryan?
Yeah, I was going to say it's a great opportunity to talk to people about this kind of thing, and trying to, you know, say like, hey, here's what's going on. Like just saying, you know, talking to your friend or something. Hey, did you hear what happened? The President Trump thing, you know, I got this pledge thing. What do you think about all that? Are you curious about it at all? It's a great way to find out, because like Derek said, there's a stigma, you know, that people think like if they go to talk about it with people, somebody's going to think you're goofy or something like that. But I've been doing that with basically everybody I know. I have yet to have a single person act weirdly about it, and all these different people are really, really curious and have gone, they, you know, signed the petition and everything like that. So it went really well.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, I think what the public needs to understand is that these systems of secrecy and these gatekeepers covering all this up, the way they've been able to successfully do this whole time is through a massive disinformation campaign to create this massive stigma around this topic that just cripples like all our levers in society that are built to hold these systems to account, starting with us, the people. So the way to really like turn this on its head and get around it is to help destigmatize it, to get involved more publicly, to take part in these activist campaigns, and to just show this is nonpartisan. Like if there's any issue that we can get around and actually effectuate change, it's a nonpartisan issue that can create mass appeal, that is built on the core values of transparency that this country should be all about. And just imagine like the power that message alone can hold if we have thousands of people calling, texting, and sending emails and letters to their representatives. I mean, it's there for the taking, and we just have to seize it.
Yes, for sure. Any other comments before we move on? Okay. I wanted to share Dr. Stephen Greer has a new film coming out, or actually it's out now. You can watch it on Amazon. I'm going to give you a link to that. And it's also available on, I think, Apple TV and maybe Google TV as well. And here is a clip, the trailer actually for the film. Check this out.
Through the vastness of space and time, touching the very edge of the universe, Dr. Greer and his CE5 ambassadors embarked on a journey. Their collective, enlightened consciousness
Oh my God.
not only created an experience felt by the entire group, but also captured undeniable video evidence of contact.
See, look at that. Your consciousness and your belief system is deterministic as to whether or not these civilizations want to make contact with you. So that's an actual ET craft in the field.
What is this? There it is.
A CE5 expedition with over 700 people from around the world to make peaceful contact with extraterrestrial beings.
How beautiful.
That's what the CE5 initiative is. The secrecy on this subject. They're happy for people to think there are ETs or aliens out there. They really don't want people to know this. This is the heart of the secrecy. See, this is really the unfolding of this infinite conscious quantum hologram. There's so many transdimensional objects that are lighting up and coming on and off out here.
There it is.
If you're a sincere ambassador to the universe, you want to make contact with them first.
And here's the link. This is actually benefiting Dr. Greer's because he's self-funded. So everything he does from the money he makes from books and stuff helps with his cause that he's been working on since, I think, 1993. And also in DC, it's the 25th anniversary of his press club event where he talked about the Disclosure Project and introduced it to everyone. Has anyone seen this movie yet?
I it's on the list.
Okay. It just came out. I got it, and I didn't get to finish it. But it's basically a training. You follow the people that have gone through the CE5 and what they experience. So it's almost like a training. It's only about 50 minutes long, but it's so people can do CE5. So I did want to ask, because I know several of you have had experiences with CE5, especially I think Dr. Barton and maybe Ryan as well, maybe Anthony. Can you talk about that contact and this whole idea of citizen-led peaceful contact, and how Dr. Greer feels that it is power from the people, where we as citizens reach out to our star family and make that contact?
Yes, absolutely.
You want to go first, Ryan?
Yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, I'm very excited about this movie. I come from the Greer camp, thought opinion-wise on things of kind of everything's going on. I've been following him for a while, and been a part of that kind of initiative that's been going on with those guys over there too. So I've known about this movie for a while, and I'm very excited that it finally got to be released. I think this is absolutely great that people are going to have this kind of an introduction to CE5. It's there's manuals and there's different videos and things like that somebody can go out there and get, but it's much different to see people doing something and get a very holistic view of something, as opposed to just an instruction manual that you're going out with your friends or something along those lines. So I think that part's great. And yeah, I agree. I think that I see people waking up all over the country. I see all different people. I met people at a work convention this last weekend that are into this kind of thing also, that just happened to bump into me. So we're all kind of finding each other all over the place, and I think this is happening on this very organic grassroots type of level.
Sure. Dr. Melanie, you've hosted a retreat at your place and in Tallahassee, and I was there, and you're using the walkie-talkies, using Jimmy Planchette's technique of using walkie-talkies to communicate with them, which I'm not sure if Greer covers that or not, but you want to share a little bit about the CE5 contact that you've made?
Yes, I've been involved in the CE5 technique since 2016, and we started making contact. I work with the Council of Eight, which is channeled through Kevin Briggs, and now I'm able to have direct contact with the council myself. And when we meet and I'm doing a CE5, I turn on the walkie-talkies, and when I start getting a response after we've sent a message saying, "We're here, we love you, please connect with us," when the responses come in, it's like static that sounds like Morse code, but it's binaural beats. So I record it, and I now have a program that can translate what they're saying to us. So it's phenomenal, the messages that we get from them. And I am having a retreat here next weekend at my property, so I'm looking forward to see what they're going to say. The last retreat I had, the one in December we made contact. The one that I had in January, we also made contact. And when we translated it, it said, "Go look to the north." And they were there. There was evidence of a craft there. So it's very exciting. So.
Awesome. Good. Anthony, have you done CE5 or have you had contact other ways?
Both. I've tried versions of CE5. So I got into a lot of these topics, especially the consciousness connection to the UFO phenomenon, through some of what Dr. Greer talked about in his films and his research. So that was very helpful and informative for me. But I mean, where I've landed now in my journey in this, in my research in this field, in my connections and networks, I've come to learn the importance of not attaching a specific modality for connection with these phenomena to a personality. I fear that often we as people, we like to latch on to these topics because they induce so much meaning making for us, these amazing experiences and connections. And if there is someone out there who can do this, we kind of latch on to this. It's a very human thing. So I have tried my own approaches, kind of utilizing a syncretic approach with different contact modalities that include some of Greer's work, but also others. I mean, people have been doing contact work for millennia on this earth from different traditions. So one person does not own that, but the modalities that he has talked about are important. And I've tried a technique that uses some of that. It utilizes some binaural frequencies that Dr. Barton referred to. I use some of the Monroe Institute's gateway process meditations as well. I use certain breathwork practices from pranayama breathwork to Wim Hof breathwork. And the most amazing experience I had was actually this type of approach. And I was sitting with a friend of mine, and we were just sitting out in the cold about a year ago in Virginia. And we were engaged in a very deep conversation with each other. So we weren't actively trying to do something after the initial breathwork and meditations and intentions, but we just started talking to each other and connecting on a very, very deep level, talking about our ancestors, our families, our problems, our traumas. And it was at the peak of that conversation when we were really, really connected with each other on a deep consciousness level, when I saw like the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life, physically, without any substances or anything. Just this ball, kind of amorphous ball of plasma that was the size and brightness of the full moon. That, I don't know if it was plasma, it looked plasmatic, or plasmoid. And it appeared in the sky behind her on a clear night, and it fell like the way a leaf falls, slowly for like 40 seconds as it descended towards the horizon. And I felt like it happened at the deepest moment of our conscious connection with each other. So I think these phenomena have much more to do with what's happening on inside of us in connection to the external world than any specific sort of modality or contact approach or anything. So I think there are much more broader and more appealing ways that we can act as ambassadors, like Dr. Greer talks about, with these phenomena and the greater reality around us. So I'm all about that.
Yeah. Let's talk just for a minute about citizen diplomacy. Why do you think it's important for people to reach out to these ETs as opposed to trying to, what the government has been doing?
Well, my experience of working with the Council of Eight, they want to have contact with us. The reason that I started doing the work with them in 2016 is they wanted we, who were called the Earthly Council of Four, to prepare the world for them to make their appearance. So we were to lay the groundwork and to help people raise their vibrations so they'd be ready when it's time for them to show themselves.
Wonderful. Any other comments?
No, I mean, well, I would say it's got to be the people. I mean, if it's not us, then it's going to be the national security state. And we've talked about this, over and over and over. I mean, the approach is always a militaristic approach. It's shoot down and ask questions. And just going forward, I mean, that's just an old way of thinking. And so it really does, I think, boil down to us, the people, doing the type of work that Anthony is doing and learning and being disciplined, right, to understand how consciousness works, to really move us to the next level. And I think that as contact comes and people start having their different experiences, or you know what? A friend of mine that I met at the SCU, somebody's name, Dr. Keith Taylor. He's an adjunct professor of criminal justice in New York. But he was speaking and he said that, when it comes to contact, it's, back before the microscope was invented and, we had bacteria, and some of this bacteria had positive effects and some of it had negative. But it wasn't until we had the microscope we were able to see what was actually happening and develop a better sense of reality and what was happening. And I think now with the phenomena, the microscope, in a sense, is been invented. So by looking at forward-looking infrared cameras and being able to look into spectrums that our eyes don't see, we're able to now understand other aspects of reality. And what comes with that, some of it will be good and some of it will be bad. So I think that having that type of understanding will propel us forward as we start making contact. And again, like I always say, dealing with this new paradigm that we all have to walk through together, using our discernment.
Absolutely. Well, tonight we've covered presidential statements, declassification demands, grassroots action, legislation, and citizen-led contact. So whether you're skeptical or convinced, one thing is clear: the demand for transparency is no longer fringe. If you want this conversation to move from speculation to accountability, don't just watch. We want you to join NPI. I'm going to put this on the screen here. Join NPI. Go to newparadigminstitute.org. Take the action. We've got the tiny URL on the screen. Watch the CE5 movie, The New Frontier of Contact. I've got the link right there. We'll put that in the description as well. So there are many ways, now I think is the time. The call is here. And I've been amazed at how many people are out there that are experiencers. I've just started a series called Galactic Good Vibes, where I'm interviewing experiencers. And so that we can normalize and see that, it is normal to have contact with our ET family, or what the Native Americans called our star family. So before we close for the evening here, panelists, one last thought. Go ahead.
Sign up to be a volunteer.
Yeah, I would say I would second that. If I had my final thought on it, it's, again, you have to get involved, right? Just pick up and get involved. I mean, you put your best foot forward, you act in good faith. Sure, we're going to stumble. Sure, we're going to make mistakes, but you can't let that stop you from following what you know to be true in your heart, whatever that means to you. But you have to get involved, and you cannot let the stigma of this subject stop you from going forward into something that is completely obvious. We're well past does it exist at this point. With the amount of data, if you use any type of intellectual honesty within yourself and you take a look at this subject, you will see how relevant it is, and you will see what's happening. So I encourage everybody, visit newparadigminstitute.org. We most likely have a state leader in your state. If not, then become one. Be the change that you are seeking. You can say it's corny all you want, but nobody makes those moves unless you truly believe in yourself. So I'll leave it at that.
And I would say, I would reiterate, don't let the cynicism and the compartmentalization that is forced on us, it is conditioned. Don't let it cripple you into thinking that, like I hear it all the time in my experiencer communities, unfortunately, that like, we don't need the government to disclose. We already know this is real. But I mean, there are so many systems and structures in our society, and if they open up these topics, we can have a much more democratized version of disclosure. And there are many people who are experiencers who are afraid to speak up because of the stigma around this. And a disclosure from up top, even though we don't need that, can really help so many people be more open and live their truest selves.
Brian?
Yeah, I would just say, if you Google it, don't be afraid to just go and look some different stuff up too. But yeah, if you Google it, like, I don't know, 65 or 70% of the American public now, they believe in, that we're being visited. So you're not in some kind of a weird group, to go out and talk about this kind of thing, or be like Googling it and, just kind of see what you find out there. And, don't be afraid to explore looking at things that you maybe haven't done before.
All right. Well, let me thank you all for being here tonight. It was a great conversation, and I know this will move us all forward. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and thank you, my panelists, for being here tonight. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Peace out. Bye-bye.